Jake here for American Muscle, and today I've got the MBRP Black Series axle back exhaust for 2016 and newer Camaro SS's with the NPP dual mode exhaust. If your Camaro SS came stock with that dual mode exhaust, but you're looking to add an even more aggressive note with a nice helping of visual flair, this axle back setup from MBRP has some really cool features, an aggressive tone, and a great look, all at a pretty reasonable price. The LT1 in the Camaro makes a great noise right out of the factory. But if you want to get some more volume, getting rid of that stock muffler is certainly going to help. Now, since this is an axle back setup, it isn't going to change your mid pipes or your catalytic converters, and it is still resonated, but more on that in a moment. As you heard from the clips at the beginning of the video, the tone is aggressive and it is deep. It's louder than stock, but not quite as loud as, say, a set of straight pipes. That said, we are going to give this setup a 3 out of 5 on the loudness meter. Maybe not quite enough to wake your neighbors, but they're certainly going to know something is different. Now, this setup is MBRP's race profile, meaning of course that it's going to have some more volume to it, more so than some of their other setups. Now, outside of the car, again, you get that pretty aggressive note, but inside it is going to be quiet enough to carry on a conversation. You will still hear the exhaust, but you won't get a lot of drone like you might with others. Now, that is due in part to these resonators. Now, these are known as Helmholtz resonators or J-pipes, and they're not something we see very often on aftermarket exhausts. It's typically something that only shows up on a custom setup. Now, the premise here is basically that these cancel out the frequencies that cause that droning sound without affecting the overall tone or volume of the exhaust. So this is not a muffler, it's just a resonator. As you can see, there's only one inlet and outlet. So the frequencies come in here, it does some sciencey magic, and it sends it right back out to the tips. It's sort of a best of both worlds kind of deal, and having these resonators is a really cool feature that I haven't seen on many other exhausts out on the market. Now, the piping here is all 3-inch mandrel bent aluminized stainless steel, so it's going to allow smooth flow for the exhaust gases, and this high temp black powder coat finish means that it's going to be protected against the elements while still looking pretty cool. Now, this is a great option from an aesthetics perspective if you want a bit more of a subtle look than that standard chrome finish. The black powder coating blends in really nicely with the rear diffuser or your lower rear bumper, and it looks just different enough that people will take notice before they even hear it. Now, part of that is due to these dual 4-inch tips. So you get 4 of them, 2 for each side. These are dual wall T304 stainless tips finished in that same black powder coat, and they have a similar angle cut to your factory exhaust tips. They've also got the MBRP logo stamped on the edge here, and when they mount up, they mount in a staggered setup, something a little like that. So it's going to sit pretty flush with the bottom of your bumper, and it's going to give it a nice, tasteful look when installed. And these are also a little bit bigger than your factory tips. So overall, it's going to be a little bit different, just enough that people are going to know that it's not stock when they take a moment to look at it. Now, when it comes to the price, this setup falls around the middle of the category, coming in at about $725. Now, in comparison to other axle backs out there, this does undercut quite a few of the options. Now, you won't be getting the full active exhaust here, which is part of the cost savings, of course, but you're still getting pretty solid construction, this high quality black powder coat, the resonators, and I think that more than makes up for the difference. As far as install goes, this is going to get a 2 out of 3 on our difficulty scale, and you should budget around 2 hours to get everything buttoned up. Reason for that rating is that you do need to cut off the stock muffler to get these fitted. However, once you've got that done, the new pipes will just clamp on, and they do use your stock exhaust hangers. You also get brand new clamps in the box. The only thing that you will need to do aside from that cut is unbolt the actuators on your stock setup and mount them out of the way. And to show you how to do all that, let's head over to the install bay right now.
Tools required for this install include an impact gun, an electric ratchet, a hand ratchet, an exhaust hanger remover tool, a wire wheel, a 5/16 ratcheting wrench, a 3/8 to 1/4 inch adapter, 7, 13, and 15 millimeter sockets, 8 millimeter Allen, a tape measure, a pair of safety glasses, a marker, and a Sawzall. What's up, guys? Today we're going to be installing an exhaust on our Camaro, so let's get started. So our first step to removing our exhaust is going to be to disconnect our valves. Now these are going to be found on the outside of each side tip. So we'll get the harness, press the tab, and disconnect them. So now our first step is going to be to disconnect the wiring harness to our valve controller. So to do that, we're going to remove these two 7mm bolts to clear up some access. You're going to have to take these out later on eventually because we're going to have to slide our exhaust back this way and the valves are going to slide under this. So I'll get a 7mm socket to get these off. Then we can push that back out of the way and then reach in there and disconnect our wire harness. And then we'll do that same thing on the other side. So the factory exhaust system has 6 hangers. We have 2 here, 2 here, and then 2 by our tips. So we're gonna remove the inner 4 here. That way we can still have our 2 hangers in the back holding our exhaust up while we disconnect our flanges up front. So we can get the 2 on our passenger side first. So I'll grab an exhaust hanger remover tool and pop off these isolators. And then on this one, the hanger on our pipe's a little longer than the one from our chassis. So we'll pop off our top isolator, and then we can pop it off at the bottom and slide it back on the top. Now we can do the same thing on our driver's side. Now our next step is to remove our brace here. We have 5 13mm bolts holding that in. So I'll get a 13mm socket on an impact gun to get these off. Now our next step is going to be to disconnect our O2 sensors on both sides. Now you can do this either by unscrewing the O2 sensor or simply just unplugging the harness. We're going to unplug the harness. So there's a white tab that you're going to push up and then push in, and then it will separate our connector. So we'll take our white tab, push up on it, and then we can press down and slide our connector out. Now this side's going to be the same thing, it's just a little deeper in there. Pull back on that tab, and then disconnect our connector. So now we can work on our 2 flanges. We'll get those disconnected with a 15mm socket. I've got a pole jack here to hold the exhaust in place so it doesn't drop down once we disconnect it. And then once we have our 2 flanges disconnected, we'll grab a buddy to help us pull the whole exhaust out of the car. So now on this side, we don't have much clearance, so I'm gonna get a 15mm socket with a ratchet on this side, and then we can use our impact gun on this side. So I've got some penetrating lubricant I sprayed on here just to make it a little bit easier to get these off. Now on this side, we can use a 15mm socket on an impact gun to loosen this clamp. So now I have a pole jack set up underneath our muffler to keep it in place. And then we're going to be removing the 2 bolts on our hanger on both sides to release the muffler. So now we can take a 15mm socket on a ratchet to get our 2 nuts off. And then we'll do that same thing on the other side. So now would be a good time to grab yourself a buddy, and you can take one end while your buddy takes the others. And then we'll just simply slide it out and remove it from the car. So now with the exhaust removed from our car, we can take our valves off. Now we'll be using a 5/16 inch ratcheting wrench to remove this. And then we can repeat that same process on the other side. And now we can remove our final 2 hangers on our stock exhaust using an exhaust hanger remover tool. So our first step is going to be to mount our valve actuators to our brackets. Now this system allows you to retain your valve so that you can plug it in and not get any check engine lights. However, there are no actual valves in this system. So using sport mode to track and to your normal driving won't change your sound at all with this setup. So we can lay our bracket down on top of our actuator and then grab our 5/16 bolts and thread them into the holes. Then we'll do that same thing on this side. And then we'll take a 5/16 ratcheting wrench to tighten these bolts down. So now we can reinstall our valve actuator. So we'll reconnect our wire harness. And then this is going to sandwich in between our diffuser and this metal heat shield. And then we can reuse our factory 7mm bolts. And then we can take our 7mm socket to tighten these down. And then we can repeat that same process on the other side. So now with our stock exhaust removed, we're gonna come to right behind the rear muffler where we're gonna make our cut for our new exhaust. So now we can grab our tape measure and a marker, and we're gonna measure out 8 inches from the rear muffler back. 8 inches puts us right here, so we'll make our line. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side. Measure out our 8 inches. Mark our spot. So now with our measurements made and our cut lines in place, you can grab yourself a Sawzall or your cutting apparatus of choice and a pair of safety glasses, and we can make our cuts. And now that we have our exhaust flipped over to the other side to make it a little bit easier to cut, we can make our cut on our other pipe. So now with our cuts made, we're going to take a wire wheel to clean up our edges a little. So now with our exhaust cut and our edges cleaned up, now's a good time to grab yourself a buddy to help you line up the secondary cats in the front while you get the hangers into the isolators. Now we'll reinstall our 2 15mm nuts on our passenger side secondary cat. Now we'll take a 15mm socket, going back and forth, tightening these down to put even pressure on our flange. And then we'll take a 15mm socket to tighten down the clamp on our driver's side. And now we can reconnect our O2 sensor harness. So we're gonna slide that up out of the way so that it doesn't hang on anything hot or moving. And we'll just click it in like that. And now we can reinstall our brace with our 5 13mm bolts. And then we'll just make sure all of our holes are centered. And then take our 13mm socket to tighten these bolts down. So now we can take our muffler pipe and a 2 3/4 inch clamp. We'll slide that clamp over, and then we'll put our hanger into our isolator first, and then we can slide it over our stock exhaust pipe. And then we can slide our clamp into position and tighten that down with a 15mm socket. Now we can take our tailpipe with a 3-inch clamp, slide our clamp over, and then get our tailpipe into place. Now we can install our hanger bracket. So we're going to slide this over our hanger first, and then raise that up to meet our studs. And then we'll reinstall our two 15mm nuts. And then we can take a 15mm socket to tighten these down. Now we can grab our clamp and slide that into position and tighten that down with our 15mm socket. And now we can install our tips. So we'll slide these right over the edge of our tailpipe, and then we'll use an 8mm socket or 8mm Allen to tighten those down. And then we'll do the same thing on our other tip. And then we can repeat that same process on the other side. So that'll wrap up this review and install of the MBRP Black Series Axleback exhaust for your 2016 and newer Camaro SS with NPP dual mode exhaust. Thank you for watching, and remember, for all things Camaro, keep it right here at AmericanMuscle.com.